to business program is uncertain is because it's supposed to expire at the end of this Congress. And I implore all my colleagues, regardless of the side of the aisle you're on, to reauthorize this program to ensure our veterans have the knowledge and skill set to succeed as entrepreneurs upon departure from the service. As a former small business owner myself, I understand the difficulties associated with starting and running a small business, and I want to ensure that the TAP, Transition Assistance Program, is empowering veterans with knowledge and tools they need to make the decision that is best for them to succeed. I also want to ensure that when they leave TAP, they're aware of other programs established to ensure their success, such as Veterans Mentoring and Networking Programs, SBA Assistance Programs, and state programs for veteran-owned small businesses. Frequently, the Committee on Veterans Affairs hears about how the application to apply to be a veteran-owned small business or service-disabled veteran-owned small business is filled with bureaucratic paperwork and overly complicated, and after 3 to 4 times, they just stop trying to apply. During the full committee hearing in the VA last year, we also heard about the lack of opportunities in rural areas for veterans applying to be a VOSB or a SDVOSB. Wow, check that out. Huge acronyms. It's difficult to get questions answered or fill out an application correctly when the nearest assistance you is available to you is over 100 miles away. In today's day and age, these government agencies must adapt to reach veterans or anyone wherever we can, and we're going to see an example of that by the ranking member's witness we're remoting in here. Finally, the federal government has worked hard to create specific programs to help certain individuals achieve the American dream for various reasons. Ensuring a veteran-owned business receives every advantage the federal government can afford should be a priority for programs, since just 1% of Americans serve in uniform. These men and women should receive the same, if not preferential treatment when it comes to government contracting, tax breaks, and streamlining the application process. And I look forward to finding these solutions with my friends and colleagues, Ranking Member Levin, as well as my colleagues from the Small Business Committee. I'm very excited to hear your testimony today and see how we can help you better. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. I said before that we have some great witnesses, and we also have some great members here, too. Somebody who I got to know about 8 months ago when we worked together. He represents the Southern California, I think a Los Angeles area district. We worked together about 8 months ago to ensure that his constituent and a Navy man, Lieutenant Ridge Alconis, was, after 500-something days in a Japanese prison, was able to get home rightfully to his family. And I met Mr. Levin along the way, who was a champion in that effort. He's the ranking member of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, Subcommittee on Economic Opportunity. Representative Mike Levin will recognize him for his comments.
Well, thank you so much, Chairman Lalota, and thank you to Chairman Van Orden, Ranking Member Skolton, 3 good friends in Congress, and this is how things are supposed to work around here. And I'm really, really pleased to see us all getting together. I had the honor to serve now on the Economic Opportunity Subcommittee for 5.5 years. I can tell you it's the most rewarding work that I've done in the House of Representatives, and it has, as Chairman Van Orden said, it's been nonpartisan work, working with Gus Bilirakis and Barry Moore and Chairman Van Orden. We've gotten a ton accomplished, and I'm really excited to see this, collaboration with the Small Business Committee. This is great. We should have done this 5.5 years ago, but better late than never. Historically, veterans have been more entrepreneurial than non-veterans, and my experience representing Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton has been that most of our veterans, they just want to find new ways to serve when they're transitioning from the military into civilian life, and starting a business is one of the very best ways to do that. According to the Census Bureau, some of these statistics were given before, veterans own about 5.9% of all businesses that employ 3.9 million people and have an annual payroll of about $177 billion. Pretty amazing. Last Congress, I was honored to lead legislation that was signed into law to expand veterans' eligibility for self-employment in the Veteran Readiness and Employment Program. I'm really excited to work with the Committee on Small Business to support veterans who want to start small businesses and ensuring they have the resources available to support their endeavors. I also look forward to hearing from today's witnesses on their experience as business owners and the resource they provide to assist veterans in starting and growing small businesses. With that, I'll yield back to my friend, the Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Just for time management's sake, we're going to take about the next 10 minutes or so to introduce the witnesses, and then we've been called to vote. So after that, we're going to take a brief recess so the members can vote and come back there. So for staff and witnesses, just for your time management, we're going to do about 10 more minutes and then take a break. So I want to introduce our witnesses. The first witness here today is Mr. Bill Belknap. Mr. Belknap is the president of AEONRG, LLC, located in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Mr. Belknap founded the LLC in 2012, a general contractor providing construction and mechanical, electrical, and plumbing projects and services largely to governmental clients, including the VA medical centers. It is also certified as a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. Prior to founding the company, Mr. Belknap served for 10 years as a global operations manager with Pfizer. Before joining Pfizer, he completed a 20-year Army career, thank you for your service, sir, including 10 years in the tank division in the United States and in Turkey. Mr. Belknap graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point, go Navy, beat Army, sir, with a Bachelor of Science, and later graduated from Wayne State University with an MBA in Finance. Thank you for your service, and we look forward to the conversation ahead. Our next witness here with us today is my constituent, Mr. Stephen Haydock. Mr. Haydock is the founder and owner of Haydock Engineering, LLC, located on Long Island in Ronkonkoma, New York. Founded by Mr. Haydock in 1984 as a one-man operation, Haydock Engineering has now grown to over 40 employees. In 2015, Haydock Engineering, LLC was certified as a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, driving even more growth for the company. Mr. Haydock has served as the Commissioner of the Suffolk County Department of Public Works, where he oversaw a department of over 900 employees and a $160 million operating budget. A Vietnam veteran, Mr. Haydock used the GI Bill to go to college, earning his associate degree from the Suffolk County Community College before attending the Rochester Institute of Technology, where he earned his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering Technology. Mr. Haydock, thank you for your service, sir, and for your travels here to Washington, and we look forward to the conversation ahead. I want to recognize Chairman Van Orden to briefly introduce our third witness appearing before us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce Ms. Stephanie Brown, who I've known for quite a period of time, for a long time, she says. She happens to be the widow of one of my dear friends, Admiral Tom Brown, who I served with and for on multiple continents and multiple combat tours, and he's a fine man. And I thank you so much, Stephanie, for your service and sacrifice to our country. Stephanie is the founder and chairwoman and CEO of the Rosie Network, which is a group that has been established to help alleviate some of the economic hardships that military folks have. And she has been helping hundreds and thousands of military spouses start businesses and run them so that their husband or wife can serve our country with a little less stress. So I want to thank you dearly for coming here from San Diego, California for your testimony. And I'm really looking forward to the rest of these people hearing your story and what you've done for our country, ma'am. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you. I now recognize the ranking member from Michigan, Ms. Skolton, to briefly introduce our last witness appearing before us today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and again, thank you for allowing this witness to appear remotely. Delighted to introduce our final witness, John Tellier. Mr. Tellier is a constituent of my district in Michigan's 3rd Congressional District. His company, Jetco Solutions, is based in Grand Rapids. It assists other companies in entering the federal marketplace to bid on government contracts. Jetco Solutions provides research proposal management, grant writing, and business development for businesses, helping them win contracts valued at over $4 billion. Mr. Tellier is a former paratrooper and combat veteran, retiring from the Army after 23 years of service as a lieutenant colonel. He held a range of leadership positions in the military, including a deployment to Iraq in support of Operation Desert Shield and Storm. Mr. Tellier is also deeply committed to his community, serving on boards and committees supporting youth, families, veterans, and businesses. He represents several congressional districts in Michigan as Military Academy Liaison Officer and engages nationally on veterans and military issues. I'm grateful to him for his service to our great nation and his leadership to West Michigan. Thank him for appearing today and juggling through lots and lots of logistical hurdles. I yield back.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, votes have been called. The committee stands in recess, subject to the call of the chair. We will resume after votes.
please enter the meeting passcode followed by the pound sign. You are in the meeting now.
Good morning. Audio check of the platform here in the room.
Testing, testing. If you're on the Zoom, can you hear me?
Good morning. This is the test of the platform into the 2360 hearing room. Do you hear me, Chris? If you hear me, please talk back into one of the mics on the dais. Thanks.
Okay, you ready? Okay. The committee will now come to order, and we will pick up back up with the witnesses' testimony. Now, before recognizing the witnesses, I'd like to remind them that their oral testimony is restricted to 5 minutes in length. If you see the light turn red in front of you, it means your 5 minutes have concluded, and you should wrap up your testimony. And if the red light doesn't faze you, you'll hear this, okay? And that's a double red light, all right? So work with us on that. I know you'll do great. I now recognize Mr. Belknap for 5-minute opening remarks.
Chairman LaLota, Chairman Van Orden, Ranking Members Scholden and Levin, Subcommittee members, thank you for holding today's hearing. My name is Bill Belknap. I am the President of Veonergy, a VA-certified STV-OSB, providing construction services for federal clients. I am grateful to be here today on behalf of the National Small Business Association, testifying on an issue that is vitally important to our economy, national security, as well as to me personally. Before my work in private sector, I completed a 20-year Army career, graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point and the Army's Ranger and Airborne Schools before serving 10 years in command and staff positions with Armor Combat Units. Subsequently, I spent 10 years in the Army's Acquisition Corps, serving in positions as Construction Contracting Officer, Deputy Army Installation Commander, Assistant Project Manager of the M1A2 Abrams Tank. I culminated my career as Director of the Army Science Board in the Pentagon. My dream job, however, was starting and growing my own company. The training, assignments, and experiences I received in the military were a catalyst to becoming a veteran entrepreneur. As you know, veterans make up a substantial portion of the small business community, owning roughly 2 million businesses, employing 5.5 million Americans, payrolls exceeding $250 million. This substantial footprint illustrates the appeal of veteran entrepreneurship. Despite this allure, veteran businesses face unique and persistent challenges. Actions that I recommend need to be taken. Number one, simplification of government solicitations and contracts. We are competing against commercial entities. Many of the FAR and agency-specific clauses that sometimes take up 50% of the solicitation pages, that may be up to 150 pages in length, should be migrated to periodic one-time registration entities such as SAM or SDV-USB renewal. This relatively simple change would cut the paperwork associated with federal contracts in half. The federal government should also review corporate industry best practices and incorporate more of these in contracting. Number two, count military service toward proposal past performance and experience. Too often federal agencies mandate that in their solicitations that prior government contracting experience is required, but current military service does not count. The federal government must mandate that each agency has a policy to ensure military experience and qualifications count toward acceptability and competitiveness in evaluating proposals. Number three, accountability of federal agencies meeting and facilitating set-aside goals. It is too easy for agencies to lump services together into one very large contract that only large businesses can legitimately propose and win. The federal government should develop a carrot-and-stick approach to incentivize agencies meeting their various small business set-aside goals to include veteran set-aside. Hold them accountable. Number four, promote veteran entrepreneurship mentorships. Leaving the military is a culture shock to many. In the military, servicemen and women are told where they will serve, what they will wear, how to address their superiors, etc. A veteran entrepreneur would greatly benefit from mentoring by another veteran who has successfully transitioned. Congress should mandate SBA or VA organize a task force to develop veteran entrepreneurship mentorships. Number five, self-reporting performance. All agencies incorporate modern, most efficient acquisition best practices. During the execution of federal contracts, agencies should emphasize contractors' self-reporting of their performance. Most companies take great pride in their work and want to earn the agency's trust and confidence. Number six, agency acquisition training. Standardization and incorporation of modern acquisition best practices and similar contracting and contract management methods among all agency officials will promote the liquidity of veteran entrepreneurs to serve during different agencies and increase the flow of talent among them. And number seven, increase maximum SDV-USB sole source thresholds. Use 8A regulations in SDV-USB sole source award. The 5-year update schedule means that sole source contract awarded now may be worth $1.5 million less if it were awarded after October 1, 2025, when the thresholds update. That is more than 21% difference. However, increasing the threshold without changing the rules by which sole source can be used for SDVOSB set-asides is not effective or meaningful. Change the rules to match those of 8A sole source requirements, and you'll see the program become more effective. In addition, this suggestion from the NSBA I would also encourage committee to look into development of VOSB set-asides. One possible area of improvement would be the development of specific set-aside for VOSBs, separate from existing SDVOSBs. By increasing total pool of set-asides, we help veterans, regardless of injury status, ability to actively participate in federal government contracting, and more importantly, will not disadvantage the current SDVOSB program. More detail of each of these items can be found in my written testimony. In conclusion, on behalf of the NSBA, I want to reiterate the small business community's thanks to the committee for its attention into these issues, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you very much. I now recognize Mr. Haydick for 5-minute opening remarks.
Good morning, and thank you to my congressman.
Can you turn your mic? There you go.
Good morning, and thank you to my congressman, Nick Lalotta, and to all of you for inviting me to appear before you today. I enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1968 and served as a helicopter crew chief in the Army's 57th Assault Helicopter Company in Vietnam, known as the Gladiators. I returned home, attended college on the GI Bill, and founded my own consulting engineering firm in 1984. Haydick Engineering is both a New York State certified service-disabled veteran-owned business as well as a federally certified service-disabled veteran-owned small business. Our company is well respected on Long Island in New York and has grown significantly as a result of the SDVOB program. Under the state program, however, all contracts issued by any state agency include a set-aside of about 6%, usually 6%, for service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. Under the state program, prime contractors have no choice but to seek out an SDVOB to serve as a subcontractor, or subconsultant in our case. Our firm gets inquiries every single week from companies pursuing contracts with the state, asking if we will agree to be part of them on their teams. And many of these are very, very large contracts beyond the size that we would go after as a prime. Getting the work under the federal program has been much more challenging. So I wanted to emphasize I'm not here to criticize the federal program, but instead to offer my observations about the differences between the state and the federal program and how the federal program might benefit from following some of the examples set by the state program, which has been extremely beneficial to my firm. The federal program apparently does not include the same requirements as the New York State program for winners of all contracts awarded to include an SDVOB on the project team. Under the state program, our firm has been awarded hundreds of engineering contracts, helping to create dozens of jobs at Haydick Engineering and helping to grow our firm from less than 10 employees in 2015 to nearly 50 today. Under the federal program, we have been awarded one contract for technical design of an upgrade to the sewage treatment plant at the VA Medical Center in Northport, New York. We completed that work successfully, and we have a great working relationship with the staff at VA's Northport facility. We would like to provide engineering support for other federal agencies that operate on Long Island, and I did a quick search, and we came up with a list of about 20 other federal agencies that we're aware of. Our firm is well respected, has been recognized for the high quality of our work on many levels. We're notified regularly by local governments about opportunities for new work as it becomes available. Receiving the same type of notice about federal procurements in our region would be helpful. Instead, our staff is left to attempt to identify pending federal projects by navigating their way through the federal procurement notices on the Internet. That system, sam.gov, is more complicated than it should be. The search engine is cumbersome, and when you apply different search filters to try to identify opportunities by region or by business classification, it either yields sometimes many irrelevant results or sometimes very few results, but not often are they applicable or relevant to our type of business. Because it uses a national database, our staff are searching through projects all over the world that we could never pursue. For small businesses, paying staff to dedicate that type of work hours to that process is not an efficient or cost-effective use of resources. Another issue that's common to the program is intended to help small businesses is the need for sustained economic growth. If a program helps create dozens of new jobs, we should have a shared goal of making sure that the people we hire can rely on those jobs to continue. The issue I'm raising is the need for a transition period for businesses that do grow as a result of the program. Right now, there is no glide path for a transition to protect the business and its employees in the event that the veteran owner passes on, retires, or leaves the business. The intent of the program is to help businesses expand and create new jobs. But if a state SDVOB or a federal SDVOB SB certification is lost abruptly, the business could face instant reduction of workflow, meaning instant loss of jobs for those who have benefited, but also for all the employees that work for that firm. A transition process to allow companies to reduce their reliance on SDVOSB would protect businesses.
Gentleman's time.
In closing,
Go ahead. Quickly.
1, consider modifying the program to require a broader set aside for the contracts issued on federal agencies, similar to approach taken by the state of New York. Consider 2, consider establishing a proactive notification system, alerting SDVOBs of procurements.
Gentleman's time is up.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, and I now recognize Ms. Brown for her 5-minute opening remarks.
Thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm just going to jump right in. I am the daughter of a Vietnam veteran turned small business owner. I was married to retired Rear Admiral Tom Brown, who served 30 years in the SEAL teams, and I am the mother of 2 boys I raised in the military. I founded the Rosie Network after Rosie the Riveter over 12 years ago, and since then, we have provided our national award-winning, college-accredited Service to CEO program and mentoring to tens of thousands of transitioning service members, veterans, and military spouses, those that are seeking the American dream of small business ownership. We represent over 30,000 veteran and military-affiliated small businesses around the globe. While we serve active duty veterans and military spouses, today I would like to speak on behalf of the 48% of military spouses who have chosen small business ownership and entrepreneurship as a viable and portable career. Why? Because despite our best efforts, military spouse unemployment and underemployment, described by DoD leaders as a national security crisis, has remained statistically unchanged for over a decade. At 20 to 24%, the unemployment rate for military spouses is 4 times higher than that of the national average. The cost to American taxpayers is between $700 million and $1.2 billion a year. More importantly, it causes financial insecurity and stress on our military families and impacts mission readiness, retention, and recruitment. When we are employed, we are paid up to 25% less for the same job as our civilian counterparts. However, small business ownership is changing the landscape for military spouse employment, but we need your help. Based on the U.S. Military Spouse Chamber of Commerce internal data from over 4,000 of its members, we know that 87% of our members are women, 80% are married to spouses who are still serving. Collectively, they employ over 120,000 people. 80% of those are fellow military spouses and veterans. And they generate over $1 billion a year in revenue. The top challenges, you mentioned earlier, access to capital. 88% of our members are self-funded. Of the 12% that sought funding, 90% were turned down. Financial institutions often view military spouses as less than favorable due to our nomadic lifestyles. Lack of mentoring and training. Right now, the Rosie Network has a 6-month wait list because we lack the resources to provide and hire more qualified instructors. Rather than the government building yet another program that very few attend or would recommend, Why not support service organizations who are doing the hard work on the ground? Hold them accountable, yes, but please do not make these reimbursable grants that are often paid up to 90 days later. No for-profit company would be expected to operate on those terms. 73% of military spouses want government contracting opportunities. Military spouses need to be designated as an economically disadvantaged category. That will open us up for access to capital, contracting opportunities, and other resources. I'd like to give a shout out to the Army's Office of Small Business, who right now today are actively doing business with military spouse-owned companies, and they're tracking their spend. We need more federal agencies to step up. No federal agency will get credit for military spouse spend unless we are recognized. 3 years ago, the Military Spouse Chamber rolled out the first industry standard certification for military spouse-owned enterprises, which we offer for free. Today, we are the top 2% fastest growing chambers in the country, and a number of Fortune 500 companies recognize and accept our certification. They actively want to do business with military spouses. If the private sector will not accept self-certification, why should the government? There needs to be reciprocity with vetted third-party certifiers. Military spouses have earned a seat at the table through our silent service and sacrifice on behalf of this nation. In my many decades in this space, not one service member or veteran has ever said to me, "Don't help my spouse." In conclusion, investing in our military spouse small business owners is an investment in our military families. It's an investment in our country and our economy. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. And now we recognize Mr. Tellier for 5 minutes. How do we have him set up? Okay, Mr. Tellier. Here we go. This is your guy, isn't it?
Good morning,
Morning.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Scholten, and other subcommittee members. Thank you for inviting me to the committee hearing and allowing Jetco Solutions the opportunity to discuss the entrepreneurial spirit of veterans and the challenges we face as small business owners. I apologize for not being in person, and the airlines did not cooperate with me. My name is John Tellier. I'm a veteran business owner and a soldier for life. My soldier journey began as far back as I can remember, a young boy playing with green Army plastic men and keeping a score sheet of Army trucks and Jeeps I sighted during my annual visit to see my father at Camp Grayling in northern Michigan. Football allowed me to attend the United States Military Academy in 1985. That was the same year Army beat Michigan State in the inaugural Cherry Bowl at the Superdome. Ironically, my journey began at the same leadership institution as my namesake, John Edward Bacavoy, who was the U.S. class of 1957, and a friend my father served with in Vietnam. This learning experience was then followed by training at the Army's Airborne and Ranger School. My first assignment was with the 3rd Armored Division in the Federal Republic of Germany, where I was to witness the fall of the Berlin Wall and the curtailment of communism. I also deployed to Iraq in support of Operation Desert Shield and Storm, and very proud to participate in the offensive in response to Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. I also had the privilege of defending America's freedom as a member of the 82nd Airborne Division. We had several 2-hour recall notices, and I exited active duty in the summer of 2000 after 8 moves in 11 years, achieving the rank of major. Some might say this is where my journey stops, but actually a new chapter was forged. My transition from the Army was a blur. My boss insisted that I work 12-hour days up to my out processing time, forcing me to go on sick call in order to buy a suit for interviews. I landed in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and began working for a large multi-billion-dollar company. After a divorce and a move to Grand Rapids, Michigan, I worked for a small manufacturer. In 2005, I was let go as the automotive industry took a dive. Faced with 6 months of unemployment, $214 a week in subsidies, a kid in travel hockey, private school tuition, and no real job opportunities, I made the decision to start a business. Echoes of "Are you crazy? And do you know what you're getting into?" to why can't you just get a normal job were commonplace. In the early years, there were few supporters. After developing my business plan, I briefed the cadre at the Small Business Development Corporation, commonly referred to as the SBDC. It went so bad that I almost decided to look elsewhere. Undeterred, I made changes and updates and continued on my purpose of starting a business that would sell packaging supplies to the Department of Defense. Shortly afterwards, Jetco received its first order, a $14,000 purchase order to McAllister Army Ammunition Plant for ammunition bags. But how was I going to pay for it since Jetco did not have a line of credit or any significant savings? Jim Feeney, previously he had tried to hire me, told his staff to grant Jetco a small line of credit. And we were able to get our contracting officer, Susan Eva Wade, her ammunition bags on time. Similar instances occurred with the Census Bureau, the United States Department of Agriculture, the federal prison industries, and at last count, today, over 248 different state and local agencies. My military training and experience was invaluable for problem-solving and analysis. My mindset of it fails in comparison to any patrol in the mountains of Dahlonega, Georgia, or blocking positions near Basra helped me get up and go out and compete every day. But I could never do it alone. My business partner and spouse complements my strengths and weaknesses. PTAC, now known as Apex, was
20
extremely
seconds,
helpful.
Mr. Tellier.
Today, I believe I'm leaving the American dream. I still worry about payroll, taxes, and healthcare. I'm glad I was fired in 2006 and forced to think creatively and start Jetco as a matter of survival, an accidental entrepreneur, if you will. I am truly appreciative of all the programs, incentives, and assistance we have received in our 18 years of business. In some way, I feel like today is payment for serving in the Army and protecting our freedom, both in peace and war. My hope is to pay that debt forward and that the next generation of veteran business owners share the same success we have and are afforded even greater opportunities and resources. Thank you.
The reason I mentioned 20 seconds because he asked for that, okay? So I didn't want you to think we were doing anything different. I'll now move to the member questions under the 5-minute rule. I recognize myself for 5 minutes. For the last 10 years, I've had the privilege of representing Fort Hood, Texas, better known today as Fort Cavazos. During my many visits to the base, I found it was not only the brave soldiers serving our country that are interested in pursuing entrepreneurship, but also their significant others. Ms. Brown, your efforts to help military spouses are very important. And can you briefly discuss some of the major challenges military spouses face as small business owners?
Thank you for that question. As I mentioned, access to capital is, of course, a big challenge, like it is for veteran-owned. Banks are hesitant because they're often, they look at their resume, they see gaps in their resume. 90% of those that did it, of our membership that did attempt to get funding were turned down. So they see a nomadic lifestyle, access to capital. Also, when it comes to, we find that over 70% of our military spouse members want to do business with the government. So getting access to capital, getting access to some of the training and resources that are available to veterans, by designating, giving military spouses that designation of a economically disadvantaged category will open that up to them. So I would encourage the committee to consider that. It was attempted before, and we were engaged in that effort. It was the same time the SBA was taking over the CVE, the veteran certification, and they felt that they couldn't manage both. But I believe that now is the time to recognize our military spouses. It just makes a stronger military family. So, thank you.
Boots to business within the SBA, and we've talked about this morning, that look to teach service members the basics of running a small business. However, I have noticed that many veterans often turn to their friends and the people they served with for advice as they look to enter the private sector. So can you describe the work you do in helping other veterans navigate small business ownership? And what advice would you have for service members who are considering taking the leap of faith and start their own small business as they embark on their next chapter?
Thank you, Mr. Congressman Williams. So there's a couple of thoughts about that. Number one is the veterans got to decide what type of business they want to offer, and that comes with what are their experiences, what are the skills they have to offer the customer, in this case the federal government. Number two, what is the passion they have to wake up every morning that are excited to do their business. Once they have those two, of course they need to come up with a business plan. And the enormity of opportunities for vetting that business plan for assistance needs to be more informed to veterans. And number three, I would suggest that the mentorship program that I talked about can have an enormous impact. You know, when I was transitioning out of the military, one of the things that during the TAP program they said is talk to all your bosses, to ask them to be a reference to help you find a job, especially the ones that liked you. And it worked out perfectly for me. I talked to a boss, and I ended up working for a large corporation until I started my business 10 years later.
Sorry. Some of you, or most of you may not know, but I've been in the car business for over 50 years, 53 years, still in the car business. I took over the family business from my dad, and I'm going to ultimately pass it along to my two daughters who work in the business. Small business ownership, as we all know, is a family affair. And when veterans are thinking about passing along their family business, there are a few more things they must consider. And when a veteran retires, the business risks losing their veteran designations if they do business with the federal government. While some protections exist for spouses who take over a company, allowing a transition phase for the company to find non-veteran business. However, this is not the case when a veteran passes down their business to a child. So, Mr. Hardick, briefly in the time I've got left, do you think we should look at expanding the surviving spouse designation to include the children of veterans as well?
Yes, I think that would be extremely beneficial, and that is actually one of the 4 points that I made, the transition process. My son sitting behind me is a licensed professional engineer. In a consulting engineering practice, it's a professional practice. Only another licensed professional engineer can take over or be an owner, a principal. But although we have built it up to 50 people, and he is a partner in the business, a short time after my demise, the business will cease to exist if he doesn't find a different person to take over as SDVOB owner.
Well, that's good. And I would just say to your son, father knows best. Remember that, right?
Oh, I know that.
Okay. I yield my time back now. I recognize Ranking Member Slocum for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Tellier, that worked out quite well. I've got some follow-up questions for you if you're still there. It's wonderful to have a fellow West Michigander here providing some incredible insights. Your business assists other companies in winning contracts with the federal government, a critical service. What are the most common barriers that you see with small businesses who are seeking a government contract?
There's really no playbook in terms of what you should do, where you should start, and who you should talk to. And it can be as simple as a SAM.gov registration and getting your cage and your UAI to inputting a SPURS score into PIEE, into determining which agencies and departments are actually buying products and services that you have to offer. And then you're asked to write a multi-volume proposal to respond to an RFP or a solicitation. And there's, unless you hire somebody to specifically do that, you're relying on your own skills. So it's in my mind, it's almost like trying to eat an elephant and trying to figure out where to start. And there's multiple access points, but I think that the enormity of the information is definitely a barrier to small business owners.
And specifically, do you feel that veteran-owned small businesses face those same challenges to a greater or lesser degree, or about the same? Veteran-owned small.
I think that I think veteran businesses have the same challenges as small business owners. I would like to potentially see, and there's been lots of testimony about the different set asides and small business goals and diverse goals. But really, I think veteran businesses, if we had more access to capital and the ability to fund, and it doesn't have to be an insurmountable amount of money, but right now we help veterans buy homes. Could we help them subsidize a business venture? And then talent and finding people and getting them to participate in your business.
Thank you so much. In my remaining time, Ms. Brown, I actually wanted to ask you a couple follow-up questions. I appreciate your testimony so much and your incredible service to our country through your family, all of you, your incredible service. I wanted to go back to something you said, that just the remarkably high unemployment rates among military spouses, and how you said that it contributes generally to an overall sense of instability and military readiness. I can see clearly how that could be the case. I'm wondering if you could share, a few stories to help us for the record here as we continue to look for ways to support heroes like you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for that question. I can certainly share my own personal story, but I have many others. I was a small business owner here in Washington, D.C. On that fateful day that I met what would become my husband a year later. He received orders overseas to take command, and I had to exit my business. So I exited my business at a loss, and then moved overseas and found myself unemployed and unemployable. I can tell you that while I proudly served alongside and supported my husband's service to the nation, you can't help but have it impact your marriage when you are, trying to find a job and you can't find one, and you have no place or purpose, and money is tight, and then kids come along. So I do think it impacts marriage, and we know statistically that it impacts retention and recruitment. And I think that all we're really looking for is an opportunity, a seat at the table. And when I noticed other military spouses that were unemployed like me, it became my goal to then help them. Look, you have a college education, you have a skill set, you have a passion, turn that into a business, right? You're a teacher, licensed, you can't get a job teaching, I'm going to help you turn it into a business. And we've done that over and over and over again. So it's been an absolute honor, and some of the stories and people that we've helped, it's just could write a book about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I went over.
No, that's very, very helpful testimony. I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you. I yield back.
Lady yields back. I now recognize the distinguished Chairman Van Orden for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Haydick, you've been very clear that you have not come here to criticize these federal programs, and I would like to take that burden for you. You sat here and it's amazing that you're praising the acumen of the government of the state of New York and their ability to make sure that veterans are employed in comparison to the federal government, which is, without using vulgarity, I don't know how to describe the federal government's process at this point. So I just want to ask you some stuff. Ranking Member Levin and I were responsible for the Transition Assistance Program, and that's how I've chosen to try to prevent veteran suicide, taking people that are productive members of the military and then immediately transitioning them to productive members of society writ large as civilians. I think it's that 24-month window where our men and women decide to take a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And so I really want to know, I'm going to ask all three of you this, how do you think that Mike and I can change the transition assistance program using your subject matter expertise? Because we don't have to ask the DOD, we can tell them. What could we possibly do if you could just have a couple suggestions that Mike and I can take back to our subcommittee and put that into the TAP program so that we can help our veterans become productive members of society? And I'd like to write these down if that's okay. Mr. Belknap?
Sure. Thank you, Congressman, for this opportunity. Yep. Thank you, Congressman, for this opportunity. A couple of thoughts. Number one is transition program that you helped founded is amazing and incredible service to our departing veterans from the service and transitioning into the commercial world. I talked about mentorship and how that helped me find a job, a corporate job after I exited. I would suggest that a similar way can happen with encouraging veterans to become entrepreneurs after they leave as well. And what that takes is a couple things. It takes, number one, their realization that it's another way to serve their country for all the right reasons. We need a strong industrial base, and they're contributing to our security in another manner.
Sir, I do not mean to,
Sure.
to cut short, but the coach there is going to whap me with that gavel if we don't hit it. So I got small business mentorship. Do you have another one?
Sorry.
That's all right. Do you have another suggestion?
Yes. So the mentorship is huge, and letting and informing, encouraging veterans that there's another way to serve their country.
Very well. Thank you.
That's huge.
Mr. Haydick? Do you have any specific recommendations for Ranking Member Levin and I to bring into the TAP program?
With respect to transition you're talking
That is correct, sir.
I really don't know what the answer to that is. One of the things I discussed with Mr. Lalota's staff when they called, and I spoke with them, it's a vexing problem, especially in the case of a professional practice. But I do think that there should be some consideration of being allowed to keep the designation of SDVOB going for a significant period of time that could allow the firm to continue to exist, both to members of the family and or to others that you may have started to transition it to.
Sir, thank you very much. I'd like to give Ms. Brown a minute. Ma'am?
Thank you for that question. Yes, absolutely. So what you refer to, Derek, is a sense of purpose. I sort of feel like that is what we do, is we're helping people find their sense of purpose after service. First of all, I've been to TAPS. They do offer an optional session on entrepreneurship. In my experience, whether it's good or not totally depends on who's teaching it. I've literally been in one, ended up stepping up and teaching the class myself because the person that was assigned to teach it had never started a business and didn't really know what they were talking about. They were regurgitating government programs that were available. Well, that's great and all well and good, but when you're boots on the ground and you got to make payroll, you need real world answers and solutions. So my suggestion is engage. The government needs to engage with organizations that are doing the work on the ground, right? There needs to be more of that collaboration. We're cut off. The SBA just launched Pathways to Business for Military Spouses. And I mean, I'm nothing against my SBA partners, but they are, it is not well attended, and it's not. So why would they do that? The last thing really quick, the GI Bill, okay? Not all veterans and their family members want to go to college, right? Please start the conversation. Over 80% of our business owners right now, veteran-owned, are over 70 years old.
Ms. Brown, my time has expired.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the distinguished ranking member, Mike Levin, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to associate myself with Chairman Van Orden's question, and obviously look forward to working together to figure this out. Ms. Brown, I want to thank you for everything that your company is doing. So much great stuff here, but I wanted to ask a couple specifics. One about younger veterans. So recent SBA report indicated that millennial veterans are less likely to start new businesses than non-millennial veterans. What do you think we need to do to ensure that younger veterans are starting small businesses?
Another great question. So millennial spouses are more likely to start a business than millennial veterans, okay? So I would argue, again, it's a family affair, as you described. Engage with those spouses. Military spouses, whether veteran or active duty, make, we all know, the majority of financial decisions, housing decisions, school decisions for military families. We are coming in the ninth inning when it comes to engaging military spouses. And again, the way to do that is not to create yet another government program necessarily, but really engage and get advice from those of us that have been doing it for almost 13 years. I think that's a huge part of it. And the younger ones are, they have a lot of advantages that the older folks like me in my 60s didn't. We didn't have access to the internet or e-com and all that kind of stuff. That's really what they're gravitating toward. So build the TAP program and that training program to be meaningful to them, right? To meet them where they are. That's my advice.
And yeah, any idea on further specifics? Obviously, really appreciate the feedback. Good segue to my next question, which is about military spouses. We've been pushing the Bureau of Labor Statistics to work with the DoD to better track monthly employment data for military spouses over time, similar to the data they collect on veterans. We don't currently have reliable monthly data on military spousal employment, so it's hard to track the success or failure of policies to support them. Can you share, and I know you work with tons of spouses, can you share what barriers the spouses are facing when they're trying to start a new business?
Well, as I mentioned before, access to capital, being embraced by the federal government, since that's definitely something that you can affect. But really, at the end of the day, it is a network. We've been training, like I said, tens of thousands for more than 12 years. What we hear afterwards, those that graduate from our program, it's not just the quantifiable impact that we've made, right, helping them get started, make money, but it's the qualitative impact. They feel like they belong to a community. They're not afraid to, move into becoming an entrepreneur. Creating that kind of support system is overwhelmingly what we get from them. That's what mattered. It was almost for them that impact was greater than making money, and oftentimes these are just kitchen table small businesses that just want to bring in enough money so they can make a car payment, maybe go on a family vacation. We're not talking about the next Microsoft, although we do have military spouse businesses that are in the a lot of money, over millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. So they are out there. So I hope did that answer your question.
I'm going to turn to Mr. Tellier. Can he hear me? Maybe. There he is. Hello, can you hear me? Maybe not. I think we're having communication trouble with Mr. Tellier.
I can.
Oh, there. Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, I'll go as fast
Yes, sir.
as I can.
I can hear you.
So your company is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, helping other businesses obtain contracts with the federal government. Congress passed a law late last year eliminating the ability of a small business to self-certify that it meets all the requirements of a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. So question for you is, have you heard any concerns about SBA requiring businesses to submit their request for certification by this December, when the SBA currently has no process to allow service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses to submit an application?
Yes, it's problematic if you're requiring certification and the body is or the agency, it does not have a mechanism for you to certify. I went through certification.
Out of time, maybe we can take this back for the record and work on it and appreciate it and yield back.
Gentleman yields back. And now I recognize Representative Malloy from the great state of Utah for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a member of the Small Business Committee, so I'm interested in keeping main streets vibrant and economies vibrant. I'm also interested in supporting veterans so they can thrive after service and military families so they can thrive during service. I am not a veteran. 2 of my 4 brothers are. And I've watched my family go through multiple deployments. I've seen my brothers navigate 2 very different educational situations, one educated by the military, the other one having his education constantly interrupted by deployments. And I've watched my 2 sisters-in-law navigate very different family situations during service. And so I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for talking about this. It's really important. We thank veterans for their service all the time, and I think one of the best ways we can thank veterans for their service and their families for their sacrifice is to make sure that you can thrive in our economy. So, since this is something that my colleague, Mr. Van Orden, has a lot more experience with, and I know he had questions he didn't get to, I'm going to yield the rest of my time to him to follow up with you on the rest of the questions he has so that we can get the right answers. Thank you.
Lady Heels.
I thank the gentlelady. As I said, Mr. Levin and I are on the Economic Opportunity Subcommittee for the VA, Mr. Haydick, and what we've noticed is that the VA is, at its core, the bureaucracy is incredibly incompetent. I get all my health care through the VA, including these raging glasses, and everybody that cleans that VA facility, to the folks that check you in at the desk and provide medical care, are aces. They're just, I'm so proud of them. But when we get up to DC, it becomes convoluted. So the VA is so dysfunctional that veteran suicide is increasing, although we've given them $120 billion since 9/11. So they recognize their dysfunction, and they started something called the Staff Sergeant Fox Grant Program, where we give the VA money, and then they find organizations that are functional, and they give the money that we give them to the organizations that are actually doing the work. And although I do not encourage this, I would not like to be an enabler. I'm wondering if the small business, the SBA, were to have a program like that that was specifically designed to cater directly to veteran-owned businesses as a clearinghouse to kind of skip all the rest of this noise and the static that we hear. Do you think that that would be beneficial to you guys? I'll start with you, Mr. Belkamp.
I can see some benefits to doing that, certainly. I think that you know, a lot of this is awareness. Veterans have to make veterans aware of the programs that are out there. There are enormous amounts of opportunities. You know, SBA, SBDC, VOBC, et cetera. So they need some awareness to it, and they also need some more awareness to some of the civilian organizations that offer free counseling and facilitation of veterans to start businesses, like NSBA, like National Veteran Small Business Coalition. I'm on the board of both of them. You know, if somebody asked me for a scholarship to join an organization, as a board member, I wouldn't hesitate to help them. And I know others feel the same way.
Mr. Haydick?
I believe that this falls right into a project that we have a proposal into the VA right now for privatization of the operation and maintenance of the VA wastewater treatment facilities at Northport. I was in government for a 5-year stint as the Commissioner of Public Works, as the Chairman had mentioned, and I think that there are many ways in which the private sector could do some of the work that government does better than the government does, and there's some things that we shouldn't be involved in. But I do think that there are things like that would work very well.
I would love to follow up with you. Ms. Brown, do you think that it would be beneficial if the SBA had a cadre of people that are specifically assigned to helping military veterans and active duty servicemen and women to get grants and facilitate starting and running small businesses, ma'am?
And military spouses, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm married to one, or was. I mean, I'm still married to her, but I'm not in the military any longer. Did you hear that, Sarah? Write that down.
That's called a veteran spouse. And yes, absolutely. I mean, again, nothing against, you know, I work closely with the SBA's Office of Veteran Business Development. I have applied multiple times to be on their advisory council and have been turned down every time. As far as I know, they've never had a military spouse on that, so that's one issue. I also, again, as I mentioned, there are the majority of, sorry, I'm looking at the time. To answer your question, yes. First of all, they need to be turning to the experts.
Yep.
Right.
Ms. Brown, my time has expired. I will take that as yes. I appreciate that greatly. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Lady and gentlemen, yield back. I now recognize Representative McGarvey from the great state of Kentucky for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is great to be here today. I have the honor of serving on both of these committees, Small Business and Veterans, so I'm thrilled we are meeting together and not just simply at the same time. It's great to see this because I'm going to take a little different tact here. I think between the small business and the veterans, we're hearing about this a lot, but there's really a lot of synergy that we can create between these two committees and what we're seeing with veteran entrepreneurs and veterans and what we're seeing that makes the small business community great. Because I know I'm a little bit preaching to the choir here, but small businesses not just are the backbones of our economy, they're the ones who are spearheading innovation in this country. They produce 14 times more patents than large businesses and universities, and they employ nearly 40% of America's scientists and engineers. Now, of course, why are they more innovative? They're more innovative in large part because they're more agile than these larger companies. They have the incredible ability to execute new ideas quickly. And I think these two committees should consider how we build the best qualities of small businesses, especially that innovation, into federal agencies. And I think we should start with not just veterans, but the Veterans Health Administration. The VA should embrace the opportunities to leverage small, innovative business solutions that can expand and go beyond contracting preferences and entrepreneurship programs we've heard about today. We should give the VA a fifth mission: innovation. Think about it. The VA is the largest integrated healthcare system in the country. It serves over 9 million veterans, caregivers, and survivors. The VA is also a massive medical research institution with billions in both public and private funding each year, spearheading discoveries and health impacts of things like toxic exposure, brain injury, and trauma, as well as developing novel treatments for a variety of cancers and other chronic health conditions. VA is also our largest medical training organization, training more than 75% of practicing clinicians in this country. But the VA cannot do this alone. There needs to be a complementary relationship between small businesses and large systems like the VA. One brings agility, the other brings scale. So, Mr. Tellier, if the VA adopted innovation as a fifth mission and was empowered to develop and invest in solutions with small businesses more effectively, especially service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses who know the veteran and caregiver challenges best, what would that mean for the SDVSOBs?
I think it's another opportunity for them to pursue a federal contract, especially with being technology related. And there are several programs out there right now, the Small Business Innovation and Research Grants, that could be a model that you could use to develop opportunities for SDVOBs to partner and pursue technology opportunities.
Just a follow-up question, because this traditional FAR-based acquisition, it offers helpful service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses preferences, sole source and set-aside options, but those preferences are still difficult to understand, access, and navigate. What are some of the hardships that veteran-owned small businesses face when seeking out a partnership with the federal government?
They don't necessarily understand what the requirements are, and if the requirements are well documented, in many cases they don't have the depth and breadth of providing the entire solution, and so I think it was mentioned earlier that STVOBs in many cases can't pursue very large contracts, and so maybe if we take bite-sized pieces in terms of scale and deployability, that might be a better course of action.
Thank you. Just with 30 seconds we've got left, Mr. Belknap, I'll ask you the same question about those SDVOSBs. What are some of the hardships they face when seeking out these partnerships with the federal government?
Certainly, access to capital is one of them that has to be overcome. The second thing is, in seeking federal government contracts, I've run across a number of conditions where there wasn't funding for it. So want to ensure that there's funding for the contract or for the initiative to come to fruition.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize Mrs. Representative Chu from the great state of California for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And I'd like to address this to Lieutenant Tellier. Lieutenant Tellier.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. You mentioned that many important initiatives catered specifically to veterans sometimes reach veterans too late when they've been out of service for years or even decades, when they've already been rejected for lines of credit or when their businesses have gone under. Can you talk more about the importance of reaching veterans who have long since transitioned from active duty? What are some ways that we can better reach this population?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've observed this just recently where a veteran and a service member who spent 30 years in the service, retired, and then what they do is they find themselves on an island, if you will. And I think if you look at the age and demographics of the VA, the VFWs, American Legions, Moose, their memberships are dwindling, and so the isolation is not intentional. It's just we have a esprit de corps and a support network while we're in the service, and then that disappears when we exit. So I think networking and finding partners that can reach those veterans, and whether they're starting a business or they're just trying to integrate themselves back into the community, is a great start. And once we can connect with them, then we can educate, aware, mentor, and then help them, whether they're starting a business or they're trying to be a productive member and in the community. And I think that also has an impact on suicide.
Thank you for that. Lieutenant Tellier, last year the SBA established the LA Regional Veterans Business Outreach Center at Long Beach City College, which was the first VBOC in Los Angeles County. This was actually a great step forward because before that, the closest center to my district was hours away in San Diego. But while Long Beach is still a long drive for my constituents, we do have 2 small business development centers, or SBDCs, within our district, each with great relationships with the community. How can the Veterans Business Outreach Centers who help administer this transition assistance program better coordinate with SBDCs to serve veterans, particularly in areas that may not have a close-by center?
I think with the technology and I'm definitely, because I called in for Zoom, I think the VBOCs should develop partnerships with the SBDCs and make sure that the growth groups and the people handling the finances, the business plans, are aware of veterans and opportunities to connect, and we can do it virtually. I also think it's a responsibility for veterans who are pursuing businesses to seek out these types of resources. And I also throw the APEX in there as maybe a common glue. And so if we're all kind of working together towards a common goal of helping veteran entrepreneurs, I think that that's a good way to do it. And they don't necessarily have to come face to face. We can do it virtually.
Got it. Lieutenant Tellier, as a small business owner yourself who is a veteran and someone who provides assistance to so many small businesses, can you talk about the obstacles you've seen veterans encounter in accessing capital? This is why I'm a big proponent of Community Advantage, which specifically serves veteran-owned businesses. It helps fill in the gaps, but can you talk more about these obstacles?
Yeah, absolutely. And the SBDC was actually instrumental in us achieving a line of credit where they actually helped us interview prospective financial institutions and then ultimately make a decision on a line of credit. But if when you exit the service, and it's been mentioned earlier that you don't have a very big war chest. I moved 8 times, 11 years. Didn't have a lot of money when I came out of the service, and so if you're going to a lending institution, that's going to be tough. If you're going into some of the trades or construction, you need bonding, and so there's a lot of financial barriers that preclude you from pursuing
Gentleman's time is
contracts
up.
because you're unable to do that.
Thank you. I yield back.
Lady yields back. I'd like to thank our witnesses today for your testimony, for appearing. We appreciate you coming here, and thank you for your service, all of you. And without objection, members have 5 legislative days to submit additional materials and written questions for the witnesses to the chair, which will be forwarded to the witnesses. I ask the witnesses to please respond promptly if that happens. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee is adjourned. Thank you, guys.